Dang it, take two. Alright, so frustrating when you forget to hit the record button. It was not hard at all to do this. The pail was only about, within 1/4 of an inch of the right height. So I just had to tip the door a little bit and get the first screw in. And so here's what we're looking for right here is the height gap. And I'm not measuring it, I'm just eyeballing it. That's close enough to 1/8 of an inch for me. That's just like, I couldn't ask for more than that. And sag in the door can be adjusted with the hinges, which is a trick my dad taught me, and I'll share with you guys later on. But even after the hinges are mortised, you can make adjustments to the sag in the door by tweaking how the hinges are setting in their mortises. Alright, so our height is good on the top and the bottom. The gap over here is way big because our hinges are not mortised yet, and so therefore the door can't fit. But everything is great. Now we're going to take the door off. It's one screw that's holding it. And we're going to take this off, and now we're going to match this piece of wood to the door by drilling all the holes in it for all the hinges. And then we're going to begin mortising this piece of wood, and we're going to leave the mortising out. There's a little bit of a mortise that we have to do to the door in order to get that hinge to be flush with the edge of the door. I'm going to leave that. So we're going to sneak up on this fit little by little to make sure everything is right where we want it. Alright, so here's another glimpse of the door jamb without the other half of the jamb in there. You see we're full width here and pretty much next to nothing here. Solid, baby. Gorilla Construction adhesive. Alright, so there's the piece of wood I removed, and here you get a glimpse of how it has a little bit of an angle in it too, so that way we have a 90 between the inside of the door jamb and the door. So alright, here's what we're doing. We've put this screw back in to locate, since they're counterbore flatheads, they locate themselves perfectly on the countersink, which is great. Sorry about that. So I eyeballed how high we are of this surface to the hinge, and you see if I go up and down there, I can eyeball that we're just about level on the horizontal plane here from the top of this surface to here, and I'm going to match that here. We're a tad high, maybe not. So anyway, we're going to double check that. We might even take a measurement here, right, to make sure we have everything straight. Once we have it straight with this clamp in place, all the rest of everything is now all lined up. And this is how it's going to go. Right? When the door's closed, it'll be like that. When the door's open, it'll be somewhere around this point. Alright, so once we get, alright, so here's what I had hoped would work out, is that where these holes go, do not interfere with the screws that are here. And this is actually fine. You know what? We can even stick another one over here and bury it underneath the hinge to make sure we have plenty of strength built into this. On this one, we're right on the edge, which is fine. This one here, we're right between. And this one's got perfect storm of a hole in the wrong place. But not a big deal. I can work around that. I can fill that hole and then re-drill, and everything will be fine. Alright, so What I'm trying to do now is think through the order of operation and how I want to do this, because it just occurred to me, if I drill all my holes now, by rights what I should do is get at least one screw in each hinge so everything will line up, and then reinstall this back on the bus and through drill in the holes on the bus. I run the risk of damaging the hole that I've already got a screw in. I guess that's kind of minuscule. I don't really have an option other than if I only drill the holes. I guess that is the option. I'm trying to not have to put this thing on and off the bus so many times. So I'll just put the holes in all these hinges now only. What I was just thinking is maybe I should go ahead and mortise. Look at there. I just noticed there's my pencil mark where I originally thought I was going to put the hinge, so I could avoid that screw interference. Oh well. Alright, I guess the answer is just drill it. I wanted to drill the holes using that guy so I would have an easier time of getting in the center and going straight and all that stuff, but we're just going to have to do it manually like I did these holes with my drill guide, which is sitting somewhere. If I was good enough to put it away. There she is. Right there. Alright, so let me get drilling. I guess that's the answer. We're just going to go ahead and drill. I use another clamp so I can move this clamp without that moving. Get these drilled, go back on the bus, screw this on, drill that through, then come back. Then I can thread the screws into these holes to hold these in exactly the right place. Then I can use my razor knife and cut around my hinge to begin my mortise. That's going to be a trick in itself. I've never mortised hinges in oak before, so I'd like to set up a jig where I can use my router. If I can do that, that'll make the process go a lot easier, but be more susceptible to a major faux pas. So, alright, we're all drilled. I kind of goofed on this one. I should have filled in that other hole before I drilled, but once I started I didn't want to like unhook everything because we're like dead in line with all these holes, right? So alright, let's go put this back in the bus and do some more drilling. Alright, I just realized how I've been messing up with my phone. When I switch from photo to video, if I hit record before the phone is actually ready to record, it feels like I've hit record, but it's not recording, so maybe I'll get better at that. So I'm getting ready to undrill this hole. So I took a scrap piece of this same red oak, and I cut off a piece, and I went over to my bench grinder and I made it fairly round where it's a snug fit. Okay, back in the old days you'd get a bunch of Elmer's glue and screw it in there. Hey again, you wondering who I'm talking to?
Yeah, I thought maybe Amy was home.
No. So next is I put some wax paper below this so I don't make a mess of my door, because I'm too lazy to remove everything off my work surface. I got a fresh tube of super glue with 15 drops of glue in it, because that's how they sell it to you. What we're going to do is put a bunch of glue in this hole.
What
like
happened?
that. I have to undrill the hole. Put some glue on this thing. Stick it there. Maybe put a little bit more glue around there. And then we're gonna tap it in there. Alright. So if my lovely assistant would be so kind to put the cap on the glue. And over there on the shelf, bring me my accelerator spray. The little bottle laying on. There you go. Now we hit it with this. Put some on there to show you how it kicks that glue off. So that's pretty much ready to sand. That's almost ready to go. That'll get really hot and burn you. So give that a couple minutes. And now
Do you have to do it to all of them or just that one?
just that one. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Okay, pretty much hard. All right, pretty good, huh? So this is going to be underneath the hinge, so I don't really care what it looks like, but that screw I want to hold. That hole, the screw that goes into that hole I want to hold, so I want to make sure that the wood is supported around the hole. It's the only reason why I went ahead and did that. Okay, so all right. Now, this step, I'm going to sand that a little bit just to make sure we're flush. We're going to go ahead and screw all the hinges in here while it's still attached like this, so that way there's no, right? I mean, the holes are pretty much going to dictate where it's going to go. Then we'll be able to mark where we're going to mortise. Yeah, it's coming along. Slow and steady wins the race. Here's the back side after I sanded it. I almost can't even feel, got super glue on this finger. I almost can't even feel it. A little bit more sanding and it'd be completely undetectable. And this broke off below the surface, so we're good. How about that? All right, so now that we're here, all right, I'm loving it. So now what we got to do is, I'm going to take the hinges off the door. I might take the door and stand it up somewhere, and because mortising out these hinges is a job in itself. Actually, if I get that done today, I'll be happy camper. Yeah, so we're going to remove the door from the hinges, or however you want to say that, clear a nice place to work, and give it a shot. I got the hinges removed, but prior to doing that, I took my trusty old razor knife and I scored it, and then I beat it with a hammer in order to get as deep as I can cut line of where the hinge goes. Ideally that would be 3/16 of an inch thick, which is the thickness of the hinge. But when I look at the edge here, it looks like I've only gone 1/8 of an inch, which is okay for starters. So the way Dad taught me to do this is you start with your cut, and you got to come with a really sharp wood chisel, which this one's fairly sharp, but I would put a new edge on it. A bit of a ding right there. It's got to be razor sharp. Then you come in here like this and you start hitting it. I might use actually a narrower chisel than this to get started. And you put a bunch of cuts this way, and you come this way and you break out the cuts that you just made. And then you take your chisel flat ways and you do this to flatten it all out. and then you return this, and you keep doing that until you've cut out a mortise the depth and shape and size that you want. Now I have some nice routers and the right bits to do this. If I could set up a jig to act like a fence on this side and this side and this side to where the router will stop in its extremes here, or at least shortly before, then all I got to do is use a chisel to clean it up on the edges. I really would like to do that, but part of my problem is this piece of wood is not square, it's tapered. So I'm not really sure how to do this. I mean, the router base would sit on this flat surface, right? Which would be fine. Everything would be at an angle. So I'm going to sit and think about this for a while. And maybe I'll even try to mortise one of these out by hand and see how bad it is. I really don't even want to try, to be honest with you, because I know it's going to be tough. But let me think about the router trick, what it would take for me to make a guide for my router. Well, I've decided I want to try to do the mortise on this machine. It's not made for this. It doesn't go quite fast enough. This thing goes, I don't know, I forget how fast it goes. Fast enough to turn a router bit anyway. But what I found was a leftover piece of this, which has got the same angle as this. So I can flip it around this way and put us back flat again, if you follow my drift. So if I put this in here, I guess it would have to be, yeah, this way. Like that. And I could lay this in there. And then one of my dilemmas is, because of this angle, the angle is on this side, which means these edges are not 90 degrees to this side. These edges are 90 degrees to the bottom. So when I try to clamp this in that vise and just level it up across the tops, it won't stay. So what I'm thinking I can do is I can put this guy in here, something like that, right? And I've got these holes that I've drilled and threaded a long time ago to allow me to use a toe clamp on top of this and hold this down flat, and then just make this snug just enough to hold it. Then all I got to do is figure my depth and my edges, and I can mill this out and be right on the money. The only thing I won't be able to do is the corners, which is fine. I can do that by hand a lot easier than trying to do the whole thing. So let me work through this. Probably ought to stop and clean up. Gosh, it's so hard to do that. But one trick that I could do, I could use one of my precision parallels up against here to put the hinge edge up to it, so I can calibrate my board to the table, and I only have to calibrate all my settings once for each one of the mortises. The way I would do that, I'm going to put the hinge back on one of these and try that trick, because that will be a huge time saver. Alright, baby steps here. So first thing I did, I clamped this parallel onto this surface so I'd be perpendicular here. Since I can't come all the way across, this guy's in the way. Then I slid the board up until the hinge hit, and I snugged this up slightly. Then we put this toe clamp on there, which is supported on the back to squeeze this down nice and tight. That's a critical step, because if this isn't tight, it changes its height, it's going to change the depth of cut. So the next thing we're going to do is remove this parallel and remove this hinge, and now we're going to eyeball our router bit to get this mortise cutting in its right range. And when I get to maybe this side and the back, I'll set my digital readout so I can be able to come right back here exactly and cut this and cut that, and then I'll just have to note how much distance there is in order to get the right width. And all along the ways I'll be able to test fit the hinge and see how it fits. So I think this is going to be the way to do this. You know what, I think I'll put my jack over here. Just snug that up by hand to make sure that we don't have anything weird going on. You know what, I probably ought to put another toe clamp here. Not bad. Not bad. It's cutting a little bit too high, too much on this side, or a little bit more on this side than this, by just a tad, which means that's too high. Which, I mean, I guess I could do better at adjusting the height of this. Because what I did was I put my straight edge across, and it appeared that we were sagging on both sides, so I just went straight across and jacked this up to match. Evidently I'm up too high, so I guess the right thing to do would be to measure from this height to the table and then do the same over here. I should have done that. So let me make that adjustment, and then we're gonna go. I just barely skimmed here just to see how it's going. It's working beautiful. I'm running at about 4,000 RPMs, which is way slower than a router, which is like close to 30,000 RPMs. But it's just beautiful, man. I couldn't complain. All right, I think we got it. We're flush, and we're snug in there. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, it would have probably been better if I didn't cut with the razor knife. It came out so darn nice. But I'm gonna, let's see, how deep did I go here? I went 180 thousandths deep in the cut, which is pretty much what this measures, so I'm on the money there. So now I don't want to take it out of the vise, but I can lower the table really dripping a little bit of oil here. I can lower the table and check the alignment with the holes better. I'm probably going to have to trim this just a little bit with a wood chisel, but geez, this was so easy, man. Alright, so you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to put this, should I put this on 0? Okay, so now we'll lower the table. 1, 2, 3, like 4 turns. And now we can see about our depth. Yeah. Depth, we're a little bit too deep. Alright, so kind of goofed on the depth. Alright, I'm going to leave that. We're going to take it out and we're going to do the rest of the work over there.